Kofi Kingston is no longer with the WWE. I never thought I'd see the day when Kofi would leave the WWE under the circumstances that he did. So apparently, TKO wanted to restructure the contracts of Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods. Now, recently, those guys signed multi-year contracts that were in the seven figures. And TKO wanted to restructure these deals. And Kofi and Xavier didn't like what they were proposing, so they mutually agreed with TKO to just leave the company. So now they are no longer WWE superstars, which is super surprising because Kofi's been here for like 20 years. I remember seeing Kofi Kingston's vignettes airing on WWE's version of ECW when he was first debuting. This was 2008, and I thought the vignettes were funny. I thought he would be an interesting character. He had a Jamaican accent because that's where they were billing him from, Jamaica, even though that's not really where he's from, and he doesn't have an accent. But I just thought he was an interesting character. And then when he debuted, his first match in ECW was against a local wrestler. And I just remember watching that match and knowing that, wow, this guy is so good and so athletic, and he's capable of putting on a match that entertains the fans from beginning to end. And there were people in that audience that night, I think they realized they saw something special that night as well. So from that point forward, I was a fan of Kofi Kingston. Now, luckily, WWE seemed like they were pretty high on Kofi Kingston as well because he won a lot of his matches. He was moved to the main roster because ECW wasn't really considered, on the same level as Raw and SmackDown. And he won the Intercontinental Championship. He won the United States Championship many times. He won the tag titles with CM Punk. This was before the New Day and all that. But there came a point years later where he was kind of stagnating, and it wasn't necessarily his fault, but he was pretty much known as the guy who can do super athletic stuff. He's in the mid-card. Whenever they have a multi-man ladder match, you can throw Kofi in there and he'll do some cool spots. You could throw him in the Royal Rumble and he'll do some crazy stuff in there too. And he'll almost get eliminated but save himself, or one of the people in the match will help save him or whatever. So that's what he became known for. But obviously that probably wasn't his goal when he decided to become a professional wrestler. I'm sure he wanted to be world champion. And nothing was really going on with him for a very long time. So, in 2008 and 2009, he was on fire. But then there came a point when he was starting to move up the card, and he had a feud with Randy Orton. And I thought, okay, this is now when Kofi's going to get to the main event. And then whatever issues happened in a match between Randy and Kofi, and supposedly Randy felt like Kofi wasn't ready for the main event, and his push was basically ended, and he just kept staying in the mid-card for years. Like I said, winning the Intercontinental belt, winning the U.S. title, tag titles with not only CM Punk, Evan Bourne as well. Then, years later, when nothing was going on with Kofi Kingston, nothing was going on with Xavier Woods either, or Big E Langston, they got together and they pitched an idea to be a group. But what Vince McMahon wanted them to do wasn't exactly what they wanted to do, but they went along with it. Their original vignettes for the New Day were them being gospel singers and talking about the power of positivity. And I think Vince McMahon thought everyone was going to love them. But anybody who watched those vignettes could see that nobody's going to like this. They're it's too goody two shoes for anybody to like. So people are going to boo this. And when the New Day came out and debuted, they were not getting a positive response from the crowd. Xavier Woods wanted people to say, "New Day rocks. New Day rocks. And everybody would say, New Day sucks. New Day sucks. So right off the bat, it was going downhill. But I remember I did buy their very first t-shirt, the New Day t-shirt, and I even tweeted at Kofi Kingston, like the picture of me wearing the shirt, and he liked it. And I just remember that. But they turned heel pretty quickly. And that's when things started turning in their favor. That's when the fans started gravitating towards them. Because once they turned heel, they started showing their personality. And basically the power of positivity, it was like toxic positivity. And they would cheat during their matches, even though they're talking about, positive things. And they would just cheat all the time and be obnoxious and just be in your face with the positivity. And then Xavier Woods had a trombone, and they just did all this stuff. And then Big E would come, and for their entrance, he would do this like speech at the beginning of their entrance. And finally, the New Day caught fire. They won the tag titles a whole bunch of times, going down as one of the greatest tag teams in WWE history, which is crazy when you think that those guys were really doing nothing when that group started. And for them to turn it into what it became and pretty much guaranteed them long careers in the WWE, incredible merchandise sales, millions and millions of dollars. It's a testament to not only their work ethic, but how intelligent those guys are. And it's a lesson for everybody that as long as you never give up, you always have a chance to do great things in this world. And they did. Now, obviously, as time went on, the New Day, they were the cornerstone of the tag team division along with the Usos. Those teams had like a feud with each other where they had a ton of matches that people loved. And then after a while, Kofi kind of like, I don't want to say he broke away from the group because that's not what happened, but like there came a situation where they needed somebody to fill in because Mustafa Ali was supposed to be in an Elimination Chamber match. This is 2019. So the New Day has been on fire for a couple years now. But Mustafa Ali was supposed to be in an Elimination Chamber match. He gets injured. He cannot compete. He cannot compete in the match. So Kofi is going to take his spot. And so they put Kofi in this like gauntlet match with the other Elimination Chamber participants. And he ends up beating several big name stars in that match. And it really, opened people's eyes and reminded them that, hey, Kofi Kingston, he's not just a tag team wrestler. He's not just a happy-go-lucky member of the New Day who sells merchandise and throws pancakes. And no, this guy is a legitimate singles star, okay? And in that gauntlet match before the Elimination Chamber, he reminded everyone of that, and everybody loved that gauntlet match. So the Elimination Chamber comes. And I think a lot of people wanted Kofi Kingston to win. Daniel Bryan was the WWE champion at this point. In the end of the Elimination Chamber, it comes down to Daniel Bryan and Kofi Kingston. And let me tell you, those two had people believing that Kofi was going to win this match. And the crowd was going nuts. They had like a really good false finish in there where Kofi hit Trouble in Paradise. Everyone thought he was going to win. Daniel Bryan kicks out. Eventually, Daniel Bryan wins the Elimination Chamber, retains the WWE title. But, that was the beginning of Kofi Mania because this was on the road to WrestleMania. And so plans changed. And now Kofi wound up with a world title match at WrestleMania. And they told a great story on the way there. His feud with Daniel Bryan is really what solidified him as a single star. It was the best singles feud of his career, that feud with Daniel Bryan. They go to WrestleMania. Kofi faces Daniel Bryan for the WWE title. And in my opinion, in the best match of the night, Kofi defeats Daniel Bryan, wins the WWE title, celebrates with Big E and Xavier Woods. One of the greatest moments in recent WWE history. Now, unfortunately, Kofi's WWE title reign didn't really, I guess, blow everyone away. It didn't make us feel like, oh wow, Kofi really is a great world champion. And I'm not blaming him for everything. It's just he wasn't really put in a position to show that he could be as great as he is, because I think whatever material they gave him for promos and stuff, it really wasn't good. They were kind of presenting him as like a white meat babyface. And he did have a good match with Kevin Owens after he won the title, where he defeated Kevin Owens. Kevin was a heel. That was a good match. But really, the rest of his feuds and matches weren't really that great. He had a feud with Randy Orton, where he beat Randy Orton. He had a feud with Dolph Ziggler, where he beat Dolph Ziggler. But there was really nothing special about his title reign, and it's a shame. And he kept coming out to the New Day's music and had pancakes and stuff. I think they should have changed his character into a more serious character to really give his title reign a chance of being memorable. And from what I understand, Kofi did have a lot of ideas for his title reign, but I think they were either rejected or ignored or whatever, so he didn't really get to do everything he wanted to do. And then all of a sudden, one day, he has to go one-on-one with Brock Lesnar, defend the title, and he loses in 5 seconds. And that was terrible, because it made Kofi look foolish. And he never won the world title again after that. It was back to the tag team division with the New Day. And that was pretty much where he's been ever since. And, he kind of hit a ceiling with his career. After that match with Brock Lesnar, he just never got back to that main event level. They put him right back in the mid-card, which is a shame. But now that Kofi and Xavier have decided to leave, you never know what they could do in the future. They don't have to be a tag team in a company like AEW or in Japan or in TNA or whatever. They could be single stars. Xavier Woods, he's never been able to really showcase what he can do from a singles capacity. I mean, I think he won King of the Ring, but still, these two don't have to be together. They've been together for so many years. They don't have to keep doing this for like a decade. They've been together. They could separate and have very successful careers outside of the WWE. And I can't wait to see it. I'm hoping, my wildest dream would be Kofi going to AEW, being a single star and becoming AEW champion and being able to show what he can do from a serious standpoint. That's my wildest dream. I hope it happens. Many years ago, before Kofi became world champion, I told somebody, I'm like, Kofi's going to be world champion one day. Or I asked them, do you think Kofi will be world champion? And that person told me, nah, he's just not going to make it to that level. And I said, I think he will. I really think he has the ability to be at that level. And then he did become world champion one day. So maybe we'll see him be world champion again. Congratulations, Kofi and Xavier. Great WWE careers. And I hope you guys become even more successful in the future.